Happy Sunday morning. This is Kathy Hansen, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sweet little treat bag. I'd like to thank Michelle Theriault, Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, for this design. We made this at her house, and it couldn't be easier. This is just one of the sweetest little boxes, and this is the box we made at Michelle's. I have to kind of flip this over. I have only one napkin that looks like this, and that's actually the surprise ingredient to this little box that makes it so sweet. Is we just grabbed a napkin out of Michelle's stash to use as tissue paper for this box. So let me set this one aside because this is the one we're going to make today. We're going to start with 1/2 of a 12 by 12 inch sheet of paper, and this sheet has been cut down to 11.5 inches lengthwise. So it's 6 inches top to bottom, 11.5 inches from one end to the other. And you don't need to worry. I do have a sheet here for you that shows what all the measurements are. So if you want to take a snapshot of this, you can. And I'll leave that on there for just a couple of minutes. And that does show what all of the measurements are. But you don't have to worry too much about it because I also will have all of these measurements and this diagram on my blog at kathyscraftroom.blogspot.com. So let's set this aside. And what we're going to do first is pull out my scoring board. And with the long edge at the top, along the top, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch, 2 inches, 6 inches, and 7.5 inches. Then what we're going to do is turn it sideways so that the shorter edge is along the top, and we're going to score it at 1.5 inches. Okay, we're finished with this big piece of equipment. We can move that off the table. Now you'll see here, hopefully you can see the scoring. It's kind of hard to see that, but there is a score line coming right down here and one here. We're going to cut that little corner out. And we're going to discard that because we don't need that piece at all. Well, as soon as I find my scissors, we're going to cut that piece out. Best planning. I always think that I have everything right here, and I don't. So we're just cutting that little piece out. And we can throw that away. The next thing we're going to do is all of the notches along the bottom, we're going to cut right up to that score line, to the horizontal score line. And then what we want to do is take a bone folder. You're going to fold all of these folds to the inside. And I like to make sure they're nice, crisp folds. So I always use my bone folder on these folds to just make sure. One more right here. And then we're going to do the same thing with these folds along the bottom. We're going to fold those to the inside. And I like to get them all at once to make sure they're lined up. And then again, I'm just going to take my bone folder and go down along the edge of that and make sure that's a nice crisp crease. This actually is going to look backwards from the diagram because I scored at this edge instead of this edge. But it's the same either way. It just doesn't matter which way you do it. Excuse me, I have a little frog in my throat this morning for some reason. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to put some score tape right along the edge on this 1/2 inch flap. I'm just going to put that right along the edge and tear that off, because I want to make sure, and I put it right up against that fold line because I want to make sure that it's going to not have any gaps there once you put it together. And then here's a neat trick to make sure that you have it all lined up perfectly. If you fold this over, not at this 1/2 inch fold, but at the 1.5 inch fold, fold it to the center, and then here is the end fold. This is the 7-inch, the 7-inch score line right here. We're going to fold that over, and look at this. It lines up just perfectly. So you don't have to, I know if you're holding it in the air and you're trying to fold everything together at the same time, that just doesn't always work so well. I know I can't ever get things lined up straight when I do it that way. So here now you have this little rectangle. I'm going to flip it upside down so the flaps are on the top, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to fold in these 2 flaps. These are the 2 short ones, and I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid glue on there. You can also use, if you want to use score tape or tear and tape, you can certainly do that. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and use my liquid glue. And then what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that this edge is, there is just a little tiny bit of overlap, and I want to make sure that that's going to be in the back when I finish this. So I'm going to take that back flap and fold it forward over these flaps. And then I'm going to take my bone folder, I'm going to flip it back over, I'm going to take my bone folder, the rounded edge, and I'm just going to go down in there and just kind of rub along those tabs to make sure that they are adhered securely. Then I'm going to put some more liquid glue right here across the top, and I'm going to fold down my other flap. And I'll be darned, look at that. Your gift box is finished. It's complete. How cool is that? So the rest of this little box is just embellishment. But if you are making these gift boxes, you can just see how quick and easy that went together. And then you can put whatever decorations on it you want to put on. So I've got these pieces parts. And I first have a piece of real red cardstock, and this piece is 3 1/4 inches across, 3 3/4 inches from top to bottom. And then I have a little piece of white cardstock, and this piece is 2 3/4 inches across and 3 1/4 inches from top to bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp just a few of the sunflowers, or the daisies, from this sweet little Hello Ladybug set. So I've got this stamp and I've got this stamp to do these. And I have my ink, I have my stamps. I use Daffodil Delight because that's a nice bright yellow color. And I'm just going to stamp them randomly on there. I kind of liked having one. I'm going to put a piece of paper under this so I don't get ink on my mat here. So I just stamped one up here in the corner, and then I kind of stamped another one kind of over here, and then I'm just going to stamp a partial one down here in this other corner. And that looks good to me. Then what I'm going to do is take my real red ink, and I apologize for that little beeping in the background. Someone is very enthusiastically texting me this morning, and I forgot to turn off my text tone. Luckily it's not a really loud, annoying tune or something. I'm going to put this little red right in the center of each one of these daisies. Oops, I missed that one just a little bit. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is put it in my Big Shot, and I'm going to emboss it. But I'm really not going to emboss it right this minute because guess what? I've already embossed it, so we wouldn't have to do that. And what I used to emboss this piece is this wonderful brick and mortar embossing folder, and it gives it, you can kind of see on there the brick texture in the background. And you definitely want to do it in this order. You do want to do your stamping first before you do the texture, because if you look at this embossing folder, you'll see that there's quite a difference in height. So if you try to stamp it after you emboss it, you can, hopefully you can kind of see that there's a difference in the height of these different parts for the bricks. So if you try to stamp it after you emboss it, you're not going to be able to get a nice even stamping image. So now I'm going to put adhesive on the back, and I don't see my tape roller, so what I'm going to use is just another little bit of liquid glue. That works for everything, so it may be a little bit messier than using regular glue, but you know what? I'm okay with that today. That's not going to make too big of a mess. And we're not really adhering too many things together, so it'll be just fine. So I'm just going to put this in the center of the Real Red. I think that's fairly even. Then I'm going to make my ladybug. And the ladybug is a punch. Oh no, did I forget to bring my ladybug punch? That's kind of crazy. Nope, here it is. I have it. Okay, so all I need is some wings out of the Real Red. So I'm just going to punch the Real Red wings right here. Then I'm going to punch the body of the ladybug right over on this side out of black cardstock. And all you need for this, you can see, is just a scrap. And this actually is bundled with that stamp set that I showed you. It's called the Hello Ladybug bundle. So that's kind of a cool thing. That's in the Stampin' Up! January through June 2022 holiday, or mini catalog. You can tell I haven't had enough coffee this morning. I'm just not using my words correctly. I'm going to put just a tiny little thin line of liquid glue along the top of the wings, and I'm going to attach those to my ladybug body. There is actually, I don't know if you noticed on that stamp set, there is a coordinating stamp if you want to stamp these first instead of just punching them out of the red and black. And actually, that's what we did at Michelle's house. So you can see this one is stamped, and then it's punched out with the punch. This is my ladybug, and what I'm going to do with that is take a few Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to put those on the back here. And maybe I'll cut just a little edge. Oh, look at that. I've lost my scissors again already. Here they are. And I'm just going to cut a little piece from the edge to wedge in there at the bottom, because I like to have all of my pieces sticky. Okay, so I have that little piece at the bottom. And then I'm just going to remove all these backings, and I'm going to attach my ladybug. Oh, about here is where I like this guy. You know, you could also stamp an image to put on here, a little word sentiment or something. On this one, we stamped hello down at the bottom. Again, that's something you would need to stamp probably before you emboss it. There is a little open area here in this brick where it would fit, but it would probably be best to stamp a sentiment before you emboss it. Again, just because that embossing folder is so textured that you may not get a good image with it. Okay, so we have this, and now what I'm going to do is I have some matte black dots, and these are really cool. And I'm just going to go ahead and put those onto the wings. Instead of stamping the dots on there, I wanted to have it a little more dimensional. So I'm just going to grab a couple of the big ones for each side. I'm using a total of 8 of these dots for this project. And I put the big ones here. If you have tweezers or take your pick tool or something, you can use that as well. But you know, my scissors work just fine to take those adhesive backed pieces off of the backing paper. Then I'm going to go to the smaller ones, and I'm going to put a few smaller ones in there as well. So I'm going to put one here, and I think I'll put another one here. I'm going to flip it around so they're easier to get to these other places. One here. It's kind of hard to work over top of these big bumps. And then one here. So now, this is what I have. And then I'm going to take some more Stampin' Dimensionals. You could also use foam tape if that's what you have. And I like to put a lot of them on there, just because I don't want it sinking in anywhere. You can use as many or as few as you want, but most people know that I use way more adhesive than I probably need. But I sell a lot of the things that I make, and I just don't want anything falling apart after someone buys it from me. I would just be so embarrassed. So I've got a whole bunch of them on there. And what I'm going to do, excuse me, I'm going to get a little drink of coffee here. See if I can clear that little frog from my throat. And it's not even that early. It's already after 9 o'clock, so it's not like I just woke up. Taking all the backing off is what takes time with these little dimensionals. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, and they're also staticky and they cling to everything, so I'm just going to go ahead and center this on the front of the box. And there's our sweet little box. I have only one napkin like this, so I'm going to put this into our box. And how quick and easy was that? You could do this with any paper that you happen to have. Just kind of go through your stash of napkins. I'm sure everybody has fancy napkins somewhere. Go through your stash and find something, and then go through and see what kind of paper you have that would go with it. And you can make these sweet little boxes in no time. Thank you very much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed it.